Welcome to Body Hack and Build a Better You, the podcast where we unlock the secret to living a longer, healthier life and create a bloom zone in our life and within our family. I'm your host, Michaela Morell, and I'm here to provide you with the tools and knowledge to empower you to build a better you, one essential building block at a time. This episode is for all parents out there who might struggle with a sick child. I wanted to record a strong story for you to use as an inspiration for never giving up on your research. Kate is a development expert, a blogger, and a published author, but her success career-wise didn't mean anything when her son's health took a turn for the worse. Katie will share her journey with having a son who used to be functioning like a normal child, but suddenly his days were filled with puking, tics, and a low immune system. He started having many unexplained symptoms that the doctors struggled with being able to explain, and about the frustration. She will share her struggles and what they have tried, about him being diagnosed with PANS and Tourette syndrome, and how after 4 years of struggle, it all started turning around. Her child started coming back to life, and how he today is thriving again, able to eat a normal diet without puking, and how they reversed his diagnosis. I want to remind you that this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Read the disclaimer in the show notes, and I remind you to always consult your healthcare provider if you plan to make any dietary changes. Let's dive in and listen to her story. Welcome to Body Hack and Build a Better You podcast. I'm your host, Michaela Morell, and today I have our lovely Katie here. And Katie is going to share a story that is going to be very, very strong. And a lot of mothers out there that are struggling with the health of your kids are going to want to hear this story. So Katie, tell us a little bit about your son and how was your son prior to getting sick? And when did you start seeing symptoms?
Oh, thanks for having me, Michaela. It is always a bit emotional talking about my son's story, but I really feel like so many parents can learn from it. And everything happened when he was in second grade. So he seemed like just a normal kid. And then he got a winter virus, and that changed our lives for years. And it was so crazy. So the first things that started happening was he got the virus and he started puking constantly. And he went to the pediatrician. The pediatrician was wow, this is scary. He won't stop puking because it had been a bit. And the pediatrician was like, I think he has cyclical vomiting syndrome. And I had heard of that before. I did have a friend who had it as well. And so I was familiar with it. But I did not want that to be part of our lives. I know how terrible it is. And the tricky part is I had heard like it's so hard to stop once a child gets that. So we essentially had to start with all the hospital route. So we started going to the hospital to get some tests run. And a little bit prior to this, he did have some acid reflux, or so we thought.
So when did the acid reflux start? Was it just a little bit before, or have he been struggling with that as a baby as well?
Well, he had a little bit of constipation as a baby, but we didn't know of any acid reflux until he got older. So it was probably like just 2 or 3 months before. So nothing huge, but also nothing that raised bells or anything. Is very mild and mostly related to certain foods that he ate that triggered him. So it started to become this snowball. So he had the virus and then he had the puking. And then we went in to see all the specialists at the hospital and they put him on antacids, prescription strength ones. And then we started to see neurological issues. So,
And when you are saying neurological issues, what exactly were you seeing then with your son?
yeah, it was crazy. So he his personality started to change and shift. And he also he seemed like not himself. So it was like we had a totally different child overnight. And on top of that, he even started developing vocal tics. And the neurologist was like, he has Tourette's. And I was like, are you serious? All of these things? And in the midst of that, there were times that we had to take him to the ER because he was having stomach pain. And his pediatrician told us that those were abdominal migraines. So we're looking at like CVS, abdominal migraines, uh, Tourette's, and then finally we went to another doctor who kind of put the puzzle pieces together, and he was like, "There's leaky gut and PANS," and that was my first time I'd like really considered he had PANS because I had read about it before and it sounded really scary. And I was like, okay, we are actually living in pans.
So, can you take us through that? There might be people that doesn't know what PANS is. What is PANS?
Yes, pans is closely connected to pans and pandas. And it means that the person gets a virus or strep, and then the basal ganglia is attacking the brain. And so because of the infection, like the person exhibits all these symptoms that they never had before, and it alters so many aspects of their life and certainly ours. I feel like when we talk about family life, it was before he got sick and after, because it completely changed our lives. And then he also developed insomnia in the midst of it. So I had this like Hulk child who wasn't sleeping, who wasn't himself, who was having tics, who was puking all over. And we eventually had to pull him out of school. Um, in second grade, in the second semester, he missed 40 days of school. And it was just unmanageable at that point.
And I mean, I have kids that miss some time in school and the teachers are not happy. And just the stress over that as well. On top of your child is struggling and you're like, what shall we do? What can we do? And I know that you are a parent, Katie, that really, really is trying your best to find solutions. And tell us a little bit about your journey. So after he got his diagnose and after you pulled him out of school, what happened with him? Did it improve? Did it get worse? And what did you find out? Like, what did you try? And was anything helping? Was it helping some? Tell us about that.
Well, I was determined to get to the root cause. I always believed that since it happened so quickly, all the changes, that I knew it would be reversible. And I'm glad I held on to that hope because, well, when we found a good doctor, we were able to see a lot of the things subside. Like his tics subsided, and his stomach started to get a bit better. So we were working on the gut health, and but his emotions were still all over the place. He was still a Hulk mania. It's crazy. And so then we took him to a different doctor who had the ability to test his body without invasive blood work. Because at that point, my son had so much blood work, he felt like a human guinea pig, and it had been traumatizing. So that doctor looked at him and was able to tell like he had liver issues. He was struggling even a little bit with his kidneys, and he was just a hot mess. So they put him on even more supplements and wanted to do a cleanse. And then at that point, all the progress we had made went away. Every single symptom came right back again.
Okay, wait, wait, wait. So when you find this doctor that wants to do the cleanse, put him on even more supplementation, all of the progress just disappeared. So he started getting worse again. That is interesting. So, okay, Keep on. Tell me more. Tell me more. I want to hear everything.
Yes. And when before I saw this new doctor, I felt like, okay, well, I know what to do to get him back to being good. So we'll just be able to go back to that. So we went back to what originally worked, and that no longer worked. And I was like, what?
Okay, so what had originally been working? Can you give us some specifics of things that you had been doing that was working prior that was no longer working?
Yes, we were using a butyrate supplement that is also very expensive, but that definitely helps with the stomach issues. And then we also were using something that helped open up his methylation pathways. And I do think those were necessary to have no matter what. And hindsight, I think the cleanse just kind of like put everything back where it wasn't supposed to be. And so then the liver was probably overloaded and we were just dealing with, well, we went back to square one for sure.
Okay, so Butyrate, for people that doesn't know that, that is a supplementation that is supposed to help heal your gut lining when you're struggling with leaky gut. It's a very, very good supplementation, but sometimes it can taste awful. It's basically tastes like cow stomach. Some of the supplementations, but we can also trick the body to create this by itself by feeding the good gut bacteria, prebiotic fibers, a blend of that so that we can help restore that. But then also, when you're talking about the detox and that he gets set back, a lot of the things that is happening that people are maybe not thinking about when we're detoxing a body is that we are setting off a lot of heavy metals and toxins and things that have been accumulated in the body for a long period of time. And when you have that overload of toxins in your body and chemicals and everything that you have, that can become very, very heavy on your liver and your organs in general. So that is why if you're planning to do a cleanse, it is very good to prepare for the cleanse. And sometimes when people are very sick too, we can't do too heavy of a cleanse right away. And we also need to add binders to the cleanse so that can bring out the heavy metals out of the system. I just wanted to put that in there because otherwise we can reverse progress we have made. The reason why the body is storing so much is simply because it's trying to take some of the load away in our bloodstream, and we have the cells bind to it, and then we are kind of protecting the organs from it, but then we're storing on it instead. So, okay. So after you then try to put him back on the supplementation regime that had been working prior and nothing was working. So, how old was he by this time?
I think we were 2 years into it, so he was 10.
Okay, so he was about 10 years old. So, what's happened after that? Like, was he just back on square one? Did he get even worse, or what happened?
Okay, guys, you ready for the roller coaster? And I will point out, at this point, he was gluten-free, dairy-free, and we're very strict about the foods that he ate. I just wanted to have it as clean as possible, much to his dismay.
So, when he did not eat gluten free, sugar free, and when he ate other things, what would a day look like then? Like, how many times would he puke? That
Well, he still puked, and that was the thing. Like, it seemed like we could put our finger on it, but we couldn't. We were just constantly chasing it because I knew that they were inflammatory. So I was like, well, we have to remove them. But it wasn't enough to see the progress.
so then, how many times could he puke in one day? That was a bad day, and how good was he on a good day?
On a bad day, he was puking multiple times an hour for like, and it would last a week. And then, and then he'd go through stages where we'd just give him a ton of bone broth and help him heal up, and he'd be okay for like one more week. And then it would start again, and we didn't know what triggered it.
Oh, this is so painful to hear. I mean, a lot of women have been going through periods when we have been vomiting a lot if we're pregnant and are struggling with that. So a lot of women can relate to having faces. But this is your child. This is your child, and you're seeing him go through this every other week and without knowing the reason for it. So, from a mother's perspective, how did you feel when you saw your child every day and you have now for 2 years been trying multiple avenues, multiple supplementations? Did you still feel hope, or were you starting to think about his future, what his future would be like if you did not find a solution?
Yeah, I think I realized the severity of it, and I realized we had to dig deeper. We had to find the solution. Otherwise, not only would he be living with us forever, but we could be looking at a childhood cancer diagnosis too. And that was something that I wanted to prevent as much as possible. So, um, he he not only was terrible for like 2 years as far as his recovery, but then he ended up getting COVID on his birthday.
Oh man. Okay, so how did he respond to COVID? Tell us.
He started crying, and I was like, "It's okay. It's gonna be okay. We're gonna figure this out." And at first, he was crying because he wanted to go to the movie theater on his birthday, and so then he couldn't go see the movie on his birthday, which was disappointing. And so I was like, "It's okay." So his sisters also had COVID too, and so I started watching them recover and realized that he was not he was not recovering. So then from that point, that's when we got introduced to homeopathy, and that was such a like godsend for us because that was the only thing that stopped his vomiting, because otherwise it was just vomiting every day. Like we did not have that reprieve anymore. And it was amazing. Like the first time that he tried a Nux vomica pill, which first of all, I was very freaked out about because Nux vomica is a type of poison, right? But the way homeopathy prepares it, it's completely safe to use. But if you do a Google search as a mom, it's very scary. I was like, but I trust his doctor. And it was amazing how, like, in 20 minutes, he was looking better. But the thing is, he kept getting worse in just a couple of days. So I was like, well, while the homeopathy remedy is helping, like, we're we have to get further than this. We have to make it so that he stops getting sick, not just we can stop it when he gets sick. So that brings us to when I met you.
But okay, so before you met me though, after he had COVID, he started feeling a little bit better on the homeopathy. Was he still able to eat foods, or were you still restricting his diet?
Still very restricted.
So how many safe foods was he able to eat without puking?
Well, initially, when it was at the very worst, there was only six foods. And then the GI doctor told us, well, if you continue to give him those six foods, he's not going to be able to eat anything, which was, I know where she's coming from, but it was very scary as a parent to be like, this is all I can give him. And at this point, since he didn't do well on anything, we just kept him dairy, gluten, sugar free.
Okay. Well, so now we're gonna go move into when I met you. But how old was Luke when I met you? And how long have he been struggling then?
He was 12 and he had been struggling for 4 years.
And tell us a little bit about that meeting when I first met you. You remember it probably better than I did, do. So you're gonna tell that story.
Perfect. Well, I knew you had moved into our community because she had talked about she was a Swedish nutritionist moving into the area. And I was like, oh, I have not seen a Swedish nutritionist yet. And so at this point, my son is getting like $500 worth of supplements, doing homeopathy, doing acupuncture, and laser therapy. So I'm like, okay, that's another person we haven't checked out.
And I remember also that you took him in for also doing some scanning of his body with seeing where he was warm, and you tried a lot of different alternative methods.
Yeah, everything I could find, I was willing to go for it.
Well, it's so good that you keep on trying. Like a lot of people would be discouraged and think that nothing is working anyway, but you kept an open mind and you kept on trying. Okay, keep on with the story.
Yes, and I will say like um that I do appreciate that I had that because it's easy to like start shutting off, but being I just knew as long as it was natural and safe, it was always an option and that kept me going. Okay, so when I heard that Michaela had moved in, I was like, I have to talk to a nutritionist because that's just an area that we have to explore. And our daughters danced together, so we got to meet. And then we went out to coffee. And I think, did we talk about Luke first or did we talk about your mom first?
I can't remember. I can't remember. But I probably shared what happened with my mom too, because it's a very unique story. And yeah, she's my inspiration. I talked about her in the second episode if you want to go back and hear about that story. But then we started talking about Luke, and we ended up wanting to, I mean, I wanted to see him. I wanted to see this child and see what we could do for him. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. So I was like, sure, of course. So we actually went to her house after we had coffee and talked about things. And after I had heard the amazing story about her mom, which you guys have to listen to, I was like, okay, she's on to something. This is like the stuff I've been waiting to hear. And that did give me like another piece of hope. And then also Michaela was also able to like say a number of things that Luke had without me saying them first. So I was like, okay, she's really smart, guys. So then she was like, would Luke do a blood test? And I was like, I'm gonna have to ask him because of course he had been traumatized, but it's a dry spot blood test, which is very, very different. It's not traumatizing like a wet one can be. I am traumatized by the wet ones. I hate blood draws. And I didn't even have all the things that my son did. So we went over to her house and pricked his finger, and that went well. Like he was happy to do it. And that was also another saving grace is that my son trusted me still throughout this process. Some kids with PANS and PANDAS do not, and they are very closed off. But we're very fortunate that he saw some progress in areas, so he was willing to keep trying. And we always like gave him lots of foods growing up, so I think having that wide palate was a huge bonus too. But yes, I was so excited to see the test results of this just because I wanted to know like is this the area that I had been missing?
So, for a little bit of a background story, I mean, I knew out of the get go that he was struggling heavily with leaky gut and also lots of inflammation. So, the blood test I wanted to do on him was simply to be able to measure how much inflammation he's having in every single cell. And of course, his blood work came back and it was not looking great. It was lots of inflammation going on. So, did you feel like when you saw that blood test, Katie, what did you feel when you saw it? Was it relief or was it like, oh my gosh, I'm scared? Like, what did you feel as a mom?
I think I might be unusual in this way in that I was like, "Oh, finally we figured it out."
So, I mean, that's was how I like when I first saw my own blood test. I'm gonna share that story in another episode as well. But when I first saw my own blood test, first I got a little bit mad because I have been doing everything the right way, I thought. And then suddenly I still had 9 times too much inflammation going on in my body in every single cell. And I was frustrated about not knowing about it and no one talking about it, and that you can go so many years to different practitioners and they have missed this important piece of information. And it is the foundation to health. Like, if a healthy body begins with a healthy cell, and if the cells are not healthy, it doesn't matter how much CBD oil you're taking or multivitamins or whatever intervention you're doing. If your cells are not functioning correctly, you will only be able to benefit a little bit by all the other interventions you're doing. But if you're having a good foundation, like trying to build a house and just skip on the foundation, just start building the sides, yeah, you will be able to have a house, but how long is it going to be able to last? And that is what people are doing today. We're having small miniature houses, about 37 trillions of them, building up our body, and we're missing the foundation for it. So when our houses starts to crumble, we're then like, oh, what is happening? And then we start seeing symptoms and eventually become a disease that doctors are labeling, when it's usually often just our cells not being able to function. So that's why I felt this blood test was so important for Luke. And then we got him on another routine. So we changed out his $500 routine of supplementation to less than $150 worth of supplementation. But it was very targeted towards the inflammation he was struggling with every single cell. It was targeting his gut health. We needed to stop his leaky gut. And I yeah, that was like take away the inflammation, then stop the leaky gut. That is something we needed to deal with. And then also, of course, making sure that he have all the essential vitamins and minerals that he needs to be able to have a healthy cell function. So that was a part of the protocol we put him on. But tell us, how did Luke respond to this? Now everyone is like jumping up their chairs and like eager to hear, like, did he respond? How quick did he respond? And yeah, share a little bit about that.
So, the first night we had put him on a saffron supplement because he has insomnia at this point, and normally he wouldn't fall asleep before midnight, and he fell asleep at 11. So I'm like, okay, I'm so excited.
I remember that because she called me and she's like, Michaela, Luke actually fell asleep. Can it be placebo, or is the supplementation actually working? Because saffron can help people fall asleep better. It is like proven to help with mood, sleep, anxiety, and depression. Anyway, I was thrilled when she called. Keep on.
Yeah, so that was the first like glimmer of hope. And then the next day he didn't throw up at all. And the second day he didn't throw up at all either. And like his color started to come back. And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's like his skin tone wasn't normally this pale."
So, for you who is watching this on YouTube, you can see a picture of our beautiful Katie, but she's very fair skinned. And her child, he is even more fair skinned. So, when I first met him, he was so pale, walking around, maybe not looking so alive as he should look like. So, that's what she's meaning, that the color started coming back.
And you don't necessarily notice these as a parent until your child starts to get better. And I noticed about a week after he had been on the omega oil that we put him on, that he started to smile again. And again, that's another thing that I didn't realize. He stopped smiling. Like we were just living in survival mode. And I was like, oh, he can be happy again. And then a month later, he started singing again. And it was the best because my husband sent me a video when I was gone. And it was a video of Luke singing in the bathroom to a song like by Backstreet Boys. And I was like, what? It was, I didn't even know he knew that song, but that was like the first song that he started singing again. And now he sings all the time, guys.
I mean, now he's even in theater.
Yeah.
So, um, guys, I'm sitting here and I'm so emotional right now. Um, I'm so filled with joy for being able to play a part in this child's recovery story. But I mean, all credits should go to his lovely, beautiful mom that is pursuing in like resistant and is like really trying to find the solution and keep on searching and searching. So, Katie, you're like only a few days into his journey now. Like, what happened with his tics? What happened with all of the other symptoms? Tell us.
Yes. So, one of the next things I noticed is his emotional swings started to stabilize a bit more. Like when he was really sick, I was walking on eggshells. Uh, Anything I asked him to do, I know that knew there could be an explosion just because I was like the target in the house. And that's pretty common with like a pans and pandas kid is that like someone in the house gets like the brunt of all of this craziness that's going on in their bodies. But it was like I could breathe a little easier and he wasn't getting upset at his sisters over the little things that really bothered him. Um, and oh, he went through this period where like I didn't realize how constipated he was, but when we got him on the amazing fiber for the leaky gut, like he just had this self-initiated clean out for pretty much a month. And I was like, I did not know you were that backed up, buddy. I'm so sorry. But it just felt so good to know he got all of those toxins out and like we were not living with him constipated. And he hasn't been constipated since even. Um and like so all the things that he had, his food sensitivity started going away. He would like experiment because of course, he's been missing all of these foods. So we slowly were like, okay, on special occasions, you can eat whatever you want. And he wasn't starting to vomit again like he normally would. And by this point, he hasn't vomited at all. And so the last thing was his tics. And those took just under a year to go away fully. But he no longer has tics. Like he's a totally different person. Actually, we have some family that we just see like a couple times a year. And I was talking to one of my cousins and she was like, he is like a new kid now. Because I seen him when he was just really, really fragile and like in bed all the time and had to have special food constantly. She's all, and now he's like eating everything and he's up and thriving and he just looks healthy and he's had this giant growth spurt and it's crazy. So he's even found like a new passion in theater, like we mentioned. That was the first like long class that I put him back in and he didn't have to miss any days. He was not sick at all for theater for 6 months. And he entered entrepreneur camp too. And when he first started that, that was the very first activity I put him back in. I told like the teachers, I think he's stable, but if there's anything that goes on, I'll come and get him. So this is like, it was hard for me. It's the first time in 4 years I enrolled him in something. And not only did he like do great, he wasn't sick at all when he went. He didn't have any troubles. I didn't get any calls. Um, he won the group competition and the individual competition. And these are from judges who don't know anything about him, didn't realize like he had been like in bed 6 months prior.
So it was not pity prices, you guys. He deserved those prices. And oh, I'm so, so, so excited for Luke and for his journey. For, yeah, he have this whole world ahead of him now. But I wanted to ask you one more thing. So now, what is Luke's thoughts? How is he feel? Like, is he recognize how sick he was, and is he recognize how good he feels now? Is he taking responsibilities for his daily routine? Like, how is the life with him right now?
So I love that he's a kid with a routine now. Like he wakes up and he eats his breakfast and he takes his supplements, he takes his omega oil, He knows that they help him thrive. I think now that we're 18 months and he's thriving, he's starting to forget even a little bit about how sick he was because he's living in the future now. We don't have to worry about him being stuck at our house. He has plans to move out in 5 years when he turns 18. He's just setting goals and just like he is ready for the future and he he wants a job. He wishes that he could find somewhere that would hire him at 14 years old.
I love this. I love this so much because when I met you, he was bedridden so many days every single month. You had been homeschooling him for 4 years because he could not attend school. And now he's just out and about, and I see him and I smile every time I see him. He's lovely to be around. Like, he's the sweetest kid. And I'm so, so, so grateful for you. Like Katie, you are an amazing mom. You know that. I hope you know that. And I hope that this can be a testimony for to parents out there. Like, what would you like to say to parents out there? Because there are so many parents that are struggling out there with their kids. They're out there, they're trying to do research online. They go to Mr. Google, they go to doctors, they go to practitioners, and often the message is very different from every single person. But what are some encouraging words that you can leave to those people?
Well, I think first of all, we have to give ourselves grace because when you go through a hard time like that, there's always things that you regret or wish you would have done differently. And you just have to accept it as part of the journey and use that as part of like the story that's coming out and hold on to the hope for sure. Like, whenever things got hard, I was grateful that like my release was like researching till midnight and also like just again being open-minded about if it's safe and if it's natural and healthy. I was willing to try it because why not? Like why not strengthen the body in whatever way that you can? And just hold on to hope. And if you feel like a doctor has given you advice that goes against your instinct, if anyone tells you to go take Miralax, don't take it. That is one of the things that like sounds like it would be like, oh yeah, it's over at the grocery store. All these pediatricians say go get some Miralax. But I will tell you, it says on the label it is not safe for children under 17, and they've never tested it on children. So that's one of my big pieces of advice. Do not do Miralax, guys.
Do not do it. Find another solution. And there can be different solutions. We're going to talk about gluten sensitivities and constipation in another episode, for example. But okay, for parents out there, just never give up hope. Keep on searching. And tell us, Katie, if someone wants to connect with you, maybe they're having a child that is all struggling with PANS, how can they find you?
Yes, I love connecting with people and just helping them. Um, my my like initial thing that I've done is working with children as a child development expert. So I love coming alongside parents, just knowing that I can help. Um, and I you can find me on um, Instagram and Facebook at either the Mom Researcher or Katie at preschoolinspirations.com. And my website is preschoolinspirations.com. And there is a contact me. And it always warms my heart whenever like people reach out with these kinds of things because this is this is really big deal. And you're not alone. You're not alone.
And if you happen to have a child back at home that you are is a little bit younger and need potty training, I know that Kate is also offering a wonderful potty training course. FYI. But Katie, thank you so much for coming on to this podcast today. And thank you for your strong story. And thank you for sharing it with us. Thank you.
And thank you. She's an angel to us. I always say, like, God brought Michaela to us because otherwise my son would still be sick today.
If you enjoyed today's episode, I encourage you to do one thing for me. Think of one person you want to share this podcast with and copy the link and send it right away. Thanks for playing an important role in the Blue Zone community. And if you want to keep on building a better you, one essential building block at a time, hit that subscribe button. See you in the next episode.